Well, there are just 2 days left until Egypt's presidential runoff. In just a few hours' time, the Supreme Court is expected to make two important rulings that could reset the entire process of handing over power to civilian rule. For more, let's go over to Rageh, who's in Cairo for us. What are those rulings, Rawya?
Well, Jane, in April, when it became clear that important figures of Mubarak's former regime were going to be contesting the presidential election, Parliament passed a law that was called the Political Isolation Law to bar officials who served under Mubarak in the past 10 years from running for office in these coming 5 years. Not only was that law approved by Parliament, it was also endorsed by the country's top authority, the ruling military council. But the lawyers of presidential candidate AHMED, who of course was Hosni Mubarak's last prime minister, contested that decision and filed an appeal to the Supreme Presidential Election Commission saying the law is unconstitutional. As a result of that, the Election Commission referred the law to the country's top court behind me to decide on the legality of this political isolation. And that's what we're expected to hear about today. This decision could determine whether Ahmed Shafik should have been allowed to run in the first place, and in essence could lead to the entire presidential race be repeated. Separately, the court is also deciding on the parliamentary election law through which the current parliament was elected. Several legal loopholes raised questions over the legality of that law. That could also decide, if the court decided against that law, that could lead to the parliament being disbanded and in essence resetting the entire transitional process that has been underway for the past 15 months, Jane.
And of course, if Shafik doesn't run, then there's no point in having elections this weekend.
Indeed, one of the most critical issues here is the fact that this decision is being made 2 days ahead of the runoff vote, which is expected to take place on the 16th and the 17th, Saturday and Sunday. And there's a lot of anger among protesters who've already showed up outside the court from last night, protesting against Ahmed Shafik, against the political isolation law, saying the law must be implemented because they simply cannot accept that a former figure of Hosni Mubarak, the man in charge of his last days in power, the man they accuse of several acts of violence against protesters during Hosni Mubarak's last day in power, could become the president of the new Egypt. Now, in essence, this decision, though, has to be ratified by the Supreme Presidential Election Commission. It only has the final word on accepting the court's decision and whether indeed Ahmed Shafik will be disqualified from the race, which, as I said, could lead to the entire race being repeated with only 12 candidates minus Ahmed Shafik.
It'll be interesting to see how the army, with its new restored powers for arrest, will be handling this whole situation.
Absolutely, and the military has been expecting violence, if you will. You could tell from the heavy security presence here behind me outside the court, from the exceptional measure that was passed by the government on Wednesday by the Justice Minister, enabling the military police, enabling military intelligence to carry out arrests of civilians without warrants. And this just 2 weeks after the emergency law that gave the police such powers had expired. Now the military has these kind of powers. So a clear expectation of anger among protesters, and that's why we're seeing perhaps such exceptional measures passed by the government and such heavy presence outside the court here today.
All right, thank you for that, Rageh.